Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to go through some of the basic jobs of Final Fantasy XI. These are the jobs that you can pick when you're creating your character, and these are the basic jobs. There is something called the advanced job system which you unlock at level 30, but I'll probably make a separate video on those because there are quite a lot of advanced jobs in this game. For anyone that wants to know, we're currently talking about the HorizonXI server. Retail does have a few more jobs than Horizon because Horizon is limited to chains per mafia. So if you want to talk more about those details, go check out online, because even if we get to the advanced jobs, we will not be talking about stuff that's not in Horizon because I'm currently playing through a Horizon. So I guess we should start with the healer class. Right now in Horizon there is only one healer, which is White Mage, and even in the advanced jobs there is no advanced healer. White Mage is your only healer. White Mage is a very simple class. Well, I say class, job. Your main goal is to protect and shell while healing the tank. Protect has a long not a long cast time, but a long duration, so you won't have to spam it. But make sure that protect and shell are on at all times. Also, you'll have bar spells. These spells reduce damage taken from certain elements. So if you are in the dunes and you're fighting crabs, for instance, crabs use water-based AoE. With its bubble attack, so if you pop bar water, the amount of damage the group take is lowered. Some of these, but just a heads up, you will need to purchase these spells, get these spells from drops. You can either purchase some spells from NPCs. These can be actually based on the conquest points. So if your town is not high enough in the conquest, some of the spells may not be available, or based on rank. But a lot of those spells that can be sold were also sold on the auction house. So you can go to the auction house and purchase. Just remember, this will be a little bit more expensive than vendor. But if you're worried about the vendor prices, or you just are lazy and you don't want to walk around the whole town to find the vendor, you can do that. But remember, you have to purchase spells for White Mage and Black Mage and Red Mage. So if you're starting with these jobs, it can be a little bit expensive at the start. So just a heads up on that. And those are the free starting mages, by the way. So yeah, White Mage, it's a very simple healer. Just make sure you focus on healing. Unlike a lot of other MMOs, you're not really required to DPS, though they might want you to debuff early on because you have stuff like Paralyze and Blind, but your skill will not be high enough that chances are most of the time you'll be resisted anyway. And you'll be using so much mana trying to keep the tank alive, if I'm completely honest, that chances are you're not going to have the time to do this. If you are a White Mage, can I recommend bringing ginger cookies to any party you go to? Ginger cookies will increase your MP restoration. There are some other better foods later on, but for now, I would recommend ginger cookies because they're relatively inexpensive. They give you a bit of a MP restoration buff. So just a heads up on that. Okay, now we're going to go straight to tank. In reality, there is only one tank as a starting job, and that is Warrior. Warrior is also considered a DPS later on. Monk can also tank early on, but it doesn't really have the ability to keep hate. It can burst through hate with its fast attacks, but Warriors has something called Provoke. Provoke will give you immunity, which means you keep your tank. Also, Warrior has access to higher armor, which means there's more defense, and they have a little bit more HP, but sometimes monks can have a bit more. It depends on which race you're playing. And I said later on you become a DPS, though. That's because there's Ninja and Paladin as the advanced jobs. So yeah, just make sure you time your cooldowns with stuff like Defender. Also, just remember that Berserk is a very cool ability, but it lowers your defense. So if you are tanking, watch out on Berserk. So yeah, now we'll get straight to the DPSs. I play Monk, so I guess I should start with this first. Monk is a low damaging but fast attacking job. You'll do slightly less damage per hit than the other party members, but there's a chance that you might hit more times than them. For instance, if you are Monk/Warrior, you'll have a chance to proc at least 4 attacks early on when you get double attack. So yeah, Monk/ is a very fast and enjoyable class. You've got some really cool looking weapon skills. Again, the side effect with one of its abilities, Counter Stance. It's a cool ability, but you become paper afterwards. Counter Stance increases your chance to counter. Monk has the ability to counter an opponent, where you take no damage, but the enemy takes an attack instead. But Counter Stance means it increases how often you do it, but you decrease your defense. So that can suck. So also just a heads up, Monk doesn't start with a weapon. You start with a belt. So again, you'll have to grind up to make the guild to buy a weapon. Though your fists are your weapon, I guess. Anyway, now we'll get to Black Mage. Black Mage will be used to level up your White Mage. So yeah, that's mainly what I've been doing it for. Black Mage also has a spell called Warp and Warp 2. Along with White Mage, this is how you can make a lot of money. Black Mage has the Elemental Will, which allows it to do high damage. It's probably one of the highest damaging starter jobs out there. Except for Thief, which we'll get to in a minute. Black Mage can also do something called Magic Bursts. I'll go into more detail on this in the future, but there's something called a skill chain. When two different people use a weapon skill, and they certain elements that will proc a skill chain, and then if you do the magic typing of the skill chain, you'll do increased damage. So Black Mage is a little bit more skillful than some other jobs. But once you start learning what the different skills, for instance, if you do fusion and you do fire magic, you do more damage. And so if the enemy is weak to fire, there's a fusion, boom, everything is dead because Black Mage is amazing. Thief. Now, Thief is a job I never really touched in retail Final Fantasy 11. So, I was about to say 14. I haven't touched it in 14 either because it doesn't exist. Anyway, no, Thief doesn't exist. So anyway, I just know that it's often used as the pulling job for early on. You'll be running out to grab the enemies to bring back to camp. You'll also have something called Sneak Attack, which it gives you a guaranteed crit attack. And then you also have Trick Attack later on, which you chain with Sneak Attack, which allows you to give aggro to the target that's in front of you. So you're able to use it on tanks for more damage. Your main focus is doing your daggers and bursting the damage. I will say later on you're replaced by a ranger or a bard, depending on the party situation, for pulling. But you'll still be invited to parties for your high burst damage. And your ability to give aggro to the tanks, which allows the tanks to keep hate when there's huge bursts from Black Mages, etc. later on. Now, Red Mages. Red Mages is probably one of the only classes that's starting jobs that can solo later on. It is a hybrid that brings in both healing and support with some low-level damage. In Valcom Dunes, which is your level 12 to 20 area, there's a huge chance that you might be healing a little bit, because sometimes there can be a lack of White Mages and your ability to do cures and stuff like that. Although not great as a White Mage, if you've got two of you, then you can probably go through a party just fine. Though it will be, of course, a bit an issue compared to if you just brought a White Mage. That's why I like to have a White Mage and a Red Mage. That way you got a backup if need be. That's why I've been going when I've liked to enjoy having two warrior, at least someone with a warrior sub job. Again, I'll go into sub jobs in the future. Anyway, you also bring important spells such as Paralyze, Blind, and Slow because you have a high debuff skill. And you'll also bring one of the most important spells in the game, which is Refresh. This gives MP regeneration to your Black Mages and White Mages, and also to yourself, and also Summoners. This is probably one of the most important spells in the game. You also gain the ability Haste, which increases the speed of the attacks of stuff like Samurais, Warriors, anything that's a melee-based physical DPS. So yeah, Red Mages are incredibly important later on in the game. Also, you bring something called Dispel, which will remove one buff from the enemy, and you also have Stun. And you've got a lot of incredible abilities that are recommended later on in the game. Now, this was just a rough and a small sample of all the different jobs. I can go in more detail in the future. And I hope if people like the video and write a comment saying, please, Chille, go into more detail on the jobs you enjoy, then I'm happy to make some more videos on this. More videos coming in the future. But remember, go check out twitch.tv/MoogleAroundRadio to find out all the information as we play Final Fantasy XI.